Hey folks, welcome back to Game Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the game news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're talking about exclusivity and how it's really what no one is really asking for. Now, I believe just the loudest part of the internet is the one speaking for exclusives, whether you're PlayStation or whether you're Xbox, but you're the minority. Because really, only the biggest fanboys are going to be the ones getting onto these websites and actually putting in actually what they want, but they don't represent the majority that actually own the hardware, regardless of where you are. And personally, I don't care which platform you're on. I just want you to be able to enjoy the games because I ultimately think that's better for everybody. That also breeds more competition because you can have more games like yours be in the same ecosystem, so therefore yours has to be better or at a more affordable price instead of actually having this kind of walled garden monopoly. But we're going to go through this because, boy, I'm getting kind of heated up about this one because I just heard the big thing about logos with the Xbox Showcase and wondering if we should kind of like have logos on there of where people can basically buy these games on what platforms. And I think that's personally a wonderful idea because that's information you're not withholding any, and that's ultimately better for the potential consumer. You're making it easier for them because let's be honest, none of us like going to a car dealership and trying to dicker around with the price and what's wrong with the vehicle and all of that type of stuff because they like to withhold information. So, for anybody that's okay with logos not wanting to be on the showcase itself, well, they're hypocrites ultimately because they don't like having information withheld from them. What they really want is they just want to feel special with having a plastic box, which is really ridiculous. And if we're ultimately talking about the best place for exclusives anyway, it's on Steam, bitches. Seriously, it's on Steam. There's like 140 plus thousand games, and when you include all of the early access, there's over 200,000 games on the store. So if you want tens of thousands or even 100,000 games that are exclusive, go to Steam. It makes perfect sense. Okay, so anyway, let's get into this. So this is what player voice. This is actually really cool if you're interested for Xbox. I wish PlayStation actually had something like this. If they do, let us know in the comments, please. But yeah, you can basically put up what you would like to see going forward, and it's basically to provide feedback. Yeah, the top one is of course exclusives, and boy, we do not want exclusives to come back. And let's talk about why. We're also, of course, going to talk about PlayStation. Currently, there's 24 games that are truly exclusive for PlayStation 5. This you can find on Wikipedia. This is usually updated about every month. But yeah, there's a total of 24. And actually, there's 23 now because they just shut off the servers for Destruction All Stars. So that's going to disappear. So now we're back to 23 again. And again, some of these are actually quite old, like Quantum Error, or even some of these aren't really that great, like Code Violet. So there are a few good ones. Okay, Astrobot, probably Marvel's Wolverine. We'll see how Intergalactic is. Ghosts of Yote, Saros, but again, Saros didn't really sell as many copies, I don't think, as they were expecting. We're looking at about 500,000, and they need about 1 million to actually just break even. So we'll see if they get there. But yeah, this is not a popular thing looking at companies because, yeah, even Square Enix said back in 2024 that they're basically done with PlayStation exclusivity after profit drop-off. Why is that? Because they didn't sell as many games. Why is that? Because it was only on PlayStation. And take a look at Capcom. They're also wanting to have some of their exclusive games to no longer be tied just to PlayStation Plus Premium. They actually want them available in the store. Because, yeah, now they're going to be available to purchase. This also was in 2024. And this is when we started really seeing revenue numbers kind of cut back. And people were already pulling back with the recession that we did not have, right? And this was before the craziness with like the RAM prices and SSDs and other hardware costs. But yeah, this was already kind of becoming an issue, and it's really just because people don't have enough money. There's not enough money in the system like there was when we had a ton of stimulus, and so, well, people are cutting back. Also, looking too at those, the Arrowhead that actually works on making Helldivers 2. They've made a ton of money. This has actually been PlayStation's probably biggest success in copies sold. I think they've sold like 20 million or 22 million by now, which is crazy. And Arrowhead has said that, yeah, basically they're going to finance their own project. because they made so much money. And with PlayStation, they were kind of in the way. Remember, they wanted everyone to just have a PSN account so they could continue to play the game that they already bought, even on PC, which is nuts. And then they ended up bringing this game to Xbox anyway and sold another like million or 1.5 million copies, which is great. And so, yeah, more people got to play it, and Sony and Arrowhead also got to make more money. I mean, why not? Also looking at Stellar Blade, devs are also looking to go independent from Sony after their first game because, again, they don't want to be tied to just whatever the agreement is with PlayStation. PlayStation can help companies get off the ground, but ultimately companies want to sell more copies of the game. This is also with selling the publishing rights for MLB The Show, which is why now we have it on Xbox and everywhere else. This is also, too, for Death Stranding. We will be getting Death Stranding 2 on Xbox, and it's already been announced for PC, and this is because, well, Kojima Productions now owns and bought the rights to actually Death Stranding. So, yeah, of course, they're going to get as many copies as they can and sell as much as they can. When we take a look also, too, with cross-platform, maybe some of you remember that, but this was back in 2018, PlayStation finally said yes to beta testing cross-platform with Fortnite, and then it was official in October of 2019, basically telling developers, hey, you can basically build cross-platform and we'll allow it. And this was allowing players of different ecosystems to actually play together and play with each other. And again, the reason they were doing that even back then, almost 10 years ago, was so that they could have more player counts in their games. Because again, you're not going to play a multiplayer game or a live service game if your game doesn't have any players. You got to have enough players coming in to actually do that. So again, it was about the money. And this is going to be a main theme through all of this is follow the money. So yeah, they did this. Again, they didn't want to, they opened it up a little bit, which I think is kind of one of the nails in the coffin for exclusivity. But yeah, let's keep going. Also, too, PlayStation made more. This was 9 months ago with Q1 of 2025. They made more on their cross-platform games than they did from physical game sales. Which is kind of insane. And generally speaking, people buy the physical games that they want, especially for PlayStation's first-party exclusives. So cross-platform games are making more money for PlayStation than the physical sales are. PlayStation earns all of the money on first party, but they're third party. They got to split some of that, of course. But PlayStation only gets a piece of the sales for cross-platform. Think of that. That is a ton of sales on cross-platform. Take a look at TradingView. We've been seeing, too, that, with games, networks, and services, well, 18 through 24, PlayStation has basically been earning more money almost every single year. Even in 2025, they earned $31.5 billion, roughly. That's impressive. That's a good chunk of money. We take a look at Xbox. Well, yeah, when they put in their services, but also around this time, they were making more games, more cross-platform. Kind of got away with that during the Series X, and look at that. With services and also more games kind of everywhere, and also Play Anywhere on top of that, well, they've ultimately been making more money. They more than doubled their money from 2018 to 2025. That is insane. And even PlayStation, well, they basically got a little bit more than an additional 50% in that same amount of time, which is a really good amount of money. We take a look at Xbox. Yeah, with their current quarters, and I did check all these, even though these are from Icon era. I did check these. These are correct. But yeah, 5.5, 5.3, and 5.3 again. And we'll probably have a 5.2 or 5.3 again with the last quarter. And this, again, will put them at around $22 billion, which is kind of roughly about kind of where it is. They kind of have sets of three. Right here, right here, right here, right here. And yeah, it should dip down some, and it should be pretty close to the first one out of the three. So yeah, I'm guessing around $22 billion is probably what we'll get. But exclusivity, it is not profitable like it was. It worked when there were less games available, when there were less options, when games were actually cheaper to make, because now AAAs, including Marathon, takes hundreds of millions. Star Citizen is over $1 billion. GTA 6 is probably $2 to $3 billion. It's insane. Cold War, I think, was $700 million, and Battlefield 6 was $490 million. Games cost way too much to make for them to just be exclusive. This is why some of these third-party publishers are like, no, we're not doing exclusivity. And even if we do, it's only going to be timed. And because some of these games take so long to make, well, you have to rely on third-party publishing. And that's why PlayStation, since the PlayStation 2, I believe, has been buying exclusivity from these third-party publishers to actually make them exclusive. And when they were doing that, that's why Xbox decided to actually buy a whole bunch of studios like ZeniMax and Bethesda and Activision Blizzard King. Why are they doing that? Because they actually want to get games to their platform. And the games that they make, they pretty much bring them to everybody. Maybe there's timed exclusive for like 6 months, maybe 12 months. But basically, everybody gets everything at some point. But PlayStation has been buying the exclusivity, the true exclusivity game, but it's not really panning out that well if there's only 24 games. I'm not even kidding, guys. This is the current list. And there's probably 7 of these that you really care about. Maybe. And that's it. Also, if you want true exclusivity, you can have PSSR 2.0, which is built off of in conjunction with AMD for FSR 4. But yeah, that's $900. That's expensive. And so yeah, exclusivity, guys, it's all about benefiting the company. It doesn't benefit you at all. It just doesn't make it cheaper. It's not a quality story. It's not a quality game. There's not more games guaranteed. There's not more content for you. In most cases, it's worse. It costs more. And then they dribble it out as much as they can. And again, it's all about locking you into that walled garden. And with PlayStation or Xbox, the more exclusives they can have to try to get you in a certain library, well, the less you are to look outside. Well, that's the difference between the younger generations, like Gen Alpha and Gen Z, is they're actually looking outside and saying, wow, look at all of the games over at Steam. And I also get GOG, which has some DRM-free stuff, which is great, which means I actually own the data, which is better than Steam. And also there's Epic Game Store and Battle.net, and there's others out there too. Even the Xbox Store. So there's a bunch of availability. And going forward, well, Project Helix is going to be basically a PC pre-build with the Xbox app called Xbox Mode. It's going to be all of the Xbox Store, which is about 18,000 games, and also all of Steam, GOG, Epic Games, and Battle.net, all in one place. And accessibility, I've said it before, is going to be king. People aren't really going to care about the exclusives, and the third-party publishers don't really care about exclusives. And even PlayStation doesn't really care about exclusives. Why is that? Well, because they're making more money. Follow the money, guys. That's all these companies do. It's easy to see what their behavior is. And with PlayStation pulling PC ports, again, we haven't heard anything official yet. I wish to make this clear. It's only been from Jason Schreier, who is usually correct. Yes, I don't deny that. But it's only been from him. It hasn't been confirmed by anybody else. And it's only been from one report out of Bloomberg. The real test would be Ghosts of Yote, which is October of this year. And we'll see if it actually goes to Steam. We'll have to see. And again, even let's say they do pull their ports. Well, if there's not enough money in it, if they can't support their studios, then they're just going to go back. Why do you think Helldivers 2 came to Xbox in the first place? Why do you think PlayStation has been selling their publishing rights to the studios themselves that make these games like Death Stranding and MLB The Show? Why do you think others actually want to go independent and finance their own game? Why do you think Xbox has been doing the same thing with creating a service that is not just locked to the console, but is also on mobile and PC and all of these other places? Follow the money, guys.